very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. My name is Charles Mwangushampagi, and tonight I have a full panel of journalists returning to the Fourth Estate after some time. Director Communications and Public Affairs at the Parliament of Uganda, Chris Obore. Chris, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles.
I'm starting with you because we have shared sitting very close to one another for a very long time. And of course, you haven't been around for some time. Very nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm the founder of the Fourth Estate.
Yes.
So I'm coming back home.
with a new title.
You cannot delete Chris Obore from the Fourth Estate.
Yes, and Chris is not wearing a jacket. He asked me to apologize on his behalf because we didn't notify him that he needed to put on a jacket. It's been long days since he has been away. But you know,
when the journalists begin wearing a jacket, then they are better off. I don't know why they are blaming MPs.
The formality of dress code at Parliament should have dictated.
No, I'm saying I am coming to interact with the fellow journalists. I didn't know my journalists have gone ahead.
No,
they are now suited people. Journalists are supposed to be all weather. So I came as all weather. That's a journalist.
Let me introduce Sulaiman Kakaire. He is a student at the Makerere University Law School, but he's also a journalist working with the Observer. Sulaiman, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening, viewers. Actually, I have to remind Chris that it's basically impunity because this show has rules and he decided not to put on a jacket, but I'm not surprised because that's Parliament. They pass, there is a ruling, there is a judgment of court, they decide to amend the law against the judgment of court. They say that, okay, anyway, I'm used to it. And most Ugandans are used to it.
It's not
so Chris is not about defiance,
but
not impunity.
It is Kakare also defiant. I am the founder of the Fourth Estate. I know the rules on which you founded it.
You said the rules.
Now you have made it, you are now suited penguins.
But now you have the new title.
The rules have
new title.
The rules
and
have changed.
You are just a beast on the show.
The rules have since changed, so you need to acquaint yourself.
Yeah.
Like you say, we need to read the laws, the new laws that come out of Parliament. You need to read the new rules that
come out of the Fourth Estate.
that govern this show.
Yeah,
Let me introduce Muhereza Chamutetera. He's Chief Executive Officer of the CEO magazine.
Thank you very much, Charles. I'm happy to be debuting on this show, and I hope I'll be invited again. Thank you.
Not before you finish tonight's show. We'll consider that after we have assessed during the show.
When the historicals are passed.
I am the host of the show. And Onapito Ekomoloid, Corporate Affairs Director of Nile Breweries, SAB Miela.
Good evening, and nice to see Chris.
And
so what did you want to add?
I know yes. He's a Hank from Teso. He's seen it all. He's been a legislator. He's been undoubtedly one of the pioneer and most robust journalists. He has served the executive. He's now serving the corporate world. And wherever he has served, he has left a clean record. Why don't you clap for him?
You haven't added
that one, the jury is still out.
You haven't added that he's a chief in Teso.
That one is a given.
We'll be discussing should members of Parliament be taxed or not taxed, or why shouldn't they be taxed on their full emoluments, everything that they earn. That's what we'll be discussing. But let's start with we're holding this show a year after the passing of a former staff of this station, Rosemary Nankabiro, who passed away suffering from cancer, and we're having this discussion 1 year later. There's a whole debate about the breakdown of the only radiotherapy machine at Malago Hospital, and lots of explanations that came through over the last few days from government officials about the purchase of a new Cold 60 machine. Yes, for treatment, for radiotherapy of cancer patients, and the promise by government to take 400 critically ill cancer sufferers to Nairobi to get some treatment. I had an opportunity to visit a beautiful young lady who's watching her life ebb away because of cancer. A few years ago, she was able to speak. She was able to eat on her own. I mean, she still can be able to eat, to get some food into her system, but she can't eat and pass it through her throat. Caro Athirwe, who is now appealing for support, and I'd like to encourage that if anybody can give her support, gives her that support. She's looking for $80,000 to get treatment, and this is also coming in the context. Is there the money to build the bunker that is needed? Where should the money come from? It should come from taxes. Who should be taxed? Everybody should be taxed. That's what is believed. how can members of parliament, or why are members of parliament able to shield themselves from that taxation? We'll be discussing a few other issues, and hopefully we'll go into a little bit of the race for the new Speaker of Parliament as we move along. Let's start with the taxes. I want to start with Onapito Ekomoloit. Like Chris Obore said, Onapito has been a journalist, a reporter, an editor, a publisher or owner of a newspaper, a teacher or a lecturer of journalism. He served the president in the press office, and now he's corporate affairs director of Narrabri is SB Miller. And he is the only person on this show who's contested and won an election, and contested and lost an election. One of the major highlights of Onapito is that he tried to pass a legislation with Mugisha Muntu to stop members of parliament from being ministers at the same time. Ona, this whole debate about taxing emoluments of members of parliament, I know when you were in parliament, the earnings of parliamentarians was much, much smaller. Today it has grown tremendously. How do you look at it as a corporate
It
who
makes
pays the taxes?
makes me nostalgic not being in parliament today with all the kind of money which is being banded around. But Charles, first I want to start by saying that I understand what the MPs are going through at this moment. I lived that life, as you have said. They must be among the most indebted people right now in town, amidst all the challenges. Those who are incoming have not yet started earning. Those who are old and are going out are even in a worse situation because they have no income to look to. Those who are outgoing but have a second term also are still transitioning from election burdens. And this is not really to blame the individuals. I think the institution, the position of an MP has been the most bastardized, if I may use that expression, in public service of this country. It has been distorted, and it has been open to all kinds of misinterpretation, both by the political players and above all by the citizens. So it's really a position that is in turmoil. It's nice to campaign to become an MP, and you really can be as idealistic as you think, but above all, the people have totally wrong expectation what MP should do. So it's a vicious cycle. Everyone who goes to campaign.
You had more than 1,200 people, individuals, aspire to go to parliament.
I mean, look, it's no doubt that this is one position that can reward, not just financially, but also in terms of esteem. I mean, being called honorable, up today I get called honorable, and it's quite uplifting. It's not bad to wish for that kind of status, but it comes at a price. The same people who are adulating you, unfortunately, expect you as an individual to be able to respond to their genuine needs of all kinds.
Do you respond to that by avoiding paying?
No, I was going to come to the taxation. So I was trying to explain why I can understand the pressure on the MPs to avoid any reduction of their payment and instead even wish for more because of that distorted expectation from them. Even amongst themselves initially when they get into office, they don't really anticipate this, what some of them don't anticipate if they get caught up. So coming to the taxation, if the reason for which they are blaming taxation, especially pay as you earn, was not about themselves but about a general argument that should apply to all payers. I'm actually one of the people who believe that pay as you earn in the current dispensation is perhaps not a necessary tax because you have a public service delivery which is dysfunctional, and every salary earner tries to respond to their own health needs, quality health needs for that matter, their quality education needs. Above all, you have to shoulder a heavy dependency situation in this country. It is us salary earners who go to the villages and have to leave money for the dependents. You are in the city, you have dependents in your household. So basically, things which government should ideally be doing are being shouldered by the individual. So in other words,
has no
pay
business.
as you earn is one way of allowing citizens who are employed to redistribute wealth, in my view. So if the MPs made that argument, we can say let government collect taxes from other sources, but abolish pay as you earn, such that the salary earners are able to do more, not just to distribute handouts, but
So
even to develop the economy.
are you
They are
suggesting-
able to build housing, which is better for themselves and their relatives. They are able to invest and set up businesses, because some people earn fairly good money, and pay as you earn is up to 40%. This is money which they could invest.
Yes, but are you suggesting that the MPs are being selfish by demanding it for themselves and not for everybody?
Yeah,
else?
I think they are being selfish on that score. If
Okay.
they made a legitimate argument that let's have pay as you earn law changed such that people who earn salary and often don't have other businesses should also have more money in their hands to develop the economy of themselves
Thank
and
you.
of the nation.
Chris, let me come to you briefly. Could you give us a breakdown of what a member of parliament, on average, takes home?
First of all, let me correct the insinuation that the MPs have exempted themselves from paying taxes, and therefore they are not paying taxes.
No, you will come to that.
Yes.
First respond to the question. First give us a breakdown, and then you can respond to the insinuation.
Because in my response comes the breakdown you want.
Yes.
And I am so glad, like I told you, the appreciation of Onapito on this matter are spot on. MPs pay as you earn. It is just that, like Onapito says, the institution of parliament, the office of an MP, is having a love-hate relationship with the citizenry. And most of it comes from the kind of information that gets out to the citizens, and the attitude is already built. And then the different actors and the interest they are in. There are actors whose interest is to demonize parliament such that the funders find reason to fund. So demonizing parliament is not because parliament is useless, but it makes you relevant from those people whose purpose you serve, whose agenda you serve. Then there are actors who genuinely feel that Uganda needs to move a step forward in development. So they feel angry that things are not moving. But because they're not getting the right information, they rightly believe it is parliament which is the problem. So I'm analyzing this as somebody now in charge of the communications of parliament to come up with appropriate responses. The truth is, Charles, MPs have not exempted themselves from salary. That amendment from taxes. That amendment is just a paragraph, with the exception of salary.
With the exception of salary.
Salary.
So what is the salary?
Other allowances should be tax exempted. The salary of a Ugandan MP, contrary to what the media keeps putting, 25 million, the list takes this as an agenda. Each MP in the Ugandan parliament earns 11.18 million shillings.
11.18
million shillings. That money is taxed. After tax, an MP takes home 6.1 million. And the MPs have not said don't tax that. They are saying continue to tax. The argument they are having is the issue of fuel to facilitate them to go and do parliamentary work is also being taxed. They are saying this fuel one, sometimes it comes in arrears. There are times the government is unable to pay MPs to come to parliament. And the reason why they are paid is this, Charles. An MP from Kabong, elected people of Kabong, to come and represent them in Kampala, must be given fuel to come to Kampala
and to
do the representation and go back to the constituency. That is the fuel allowance they are saying. If you are giving me this money,
Chris,
to come here and go back,
Chris,
why are you taxing when I'm paying fuel?
I hear you. To be able to have a good discussion, this is a discussion that's going on across the country. I met two gentlemen yesterday at the golf club in Fort Portal, Bob and Tony, and we're discussing the same thing. And they're saying if to help them and the other people discussing this issue now, or watching us to contextualize this whole debate properly for them, tell us, an MP earns 11.18 million shillings as salary, gross.
Yes.
They are charged 6.1 million, I mean, net after taxes, it comes 6.1 million. They get a fuel allowance. How much is the fuel allowance?
Again, that is where I think the media doesn't interest in itself in giving the public accurate thing. Charles, you cannot calculate the fuel allowance of each MP until you go. Hold on, listen.
No.
Listen.
Listen.
Yes,
That's
mileage.
you listen.
Yes.
You first listen. Don't take the activist role. I'm giving information.
I'm asking
because,
questions.
Yes.
Yes.
When you ask, let me answer them. On a people who comes from Amuria to Kampala cannot get the same mileage as Honorable Semuju Uganda who comes from Kira. On a people's fuel calculated from the last point of his constituency to Kampala and back. So you cannot say Honorable Semuju or at best Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, Kampala Central.
Chris.
That is getting the same mileage as Honorable
You say,
Kwizera from Kisoro.
Chris, I think you're deliberately avoiding my question. Hold it a
Charles,
moment. Hold it a moment.
Let me first educate you.
Hold-
I have
hold-
the information.
hold it a moment.
No, you hold it.
I have asked you a very clear question.
I am asking you.
I have asked you a very clear question. How much is mileage allowance? The calculation of mileage allowance is per kilometer to the last point of an MP's constituency.
Yes.
Why is that difficult to answer? So that
But that's exactly what I've told you here.
No, I need you to give me the figures so that we do the calculation
And you see,
together.
and that is the problem.
Yes.
As a person who's supposed to inform and educate the public, you ask for figures. On Apito's farthest point in this constituency is unknown to Obore. Okay? I can gamble for Muhammad Nsereko. Where does Kampala end? Okay? Then you calculate. The same MPs for the last 5 years were being paid mileage at 2,150 per liter.
Thank you.
And when fuel was 3,700.
Thank you. The question I asked you, instead of taking us round, would have been MPs are paid 2,100 per liter of fuel used to the farthest point of their constituency, and it is calculated by kilometers to the farthest point. Simple.
What is different with that?
Then you can put that.
Now,
you can put the numbers
now
together.
I'm
Yes.
telling you now.
Yes.
That is what the MPs are saying. That you're giving me this fuel to come to Kampala to do work. It is not an income to me. It is not. And I have actually shared with them. They wanted to come with an omnibus bill and say it is wrong to tax Chamtetera's allowance for transport, Mwangusha's allowance for transport. It is being taken as an income to Mwangusha, which is a wrong thing. But they were shocked by this taxation, and some of them were even failing to go to their constituencies.
Hold it a moment. We're not getting the breakdown of the figures. Sulaiman, let me come to you.
You can't get the breakdown because the context are very many.
You are no. We can actually, because every MP gets a different fuel allowance. Technical people in that parliament do the calculation of how much every MP should get. So if someone is able to calculate for the purpose of paying them, then someone should be able to tell.
So
the
where
Ugandan
did
public,
the media get the 25 million
wait
each
a
MP
minute.
earns?
They have done an average. The media has done an average.
Which is wrong.
And I don't think that average is wrong.
Very wrong.
Based on, if you put a kilometer, the cost of a liter of fuel to the farthest point, you can calculate. You know, MP MP Anakabong or somebody like that, or Fungaro Caps,
From Obongi.
who comes from Obongi. If he travels from Kampala to the farthest point in Obongi, possibly at the Sudan border, this is how many kilometers, these are how many liters of fuel, so this is the amount of money.
I don't know what you're saying.
Hold
Is
it a moment.
that fuel wrong to give them?
No, we are not talking about right or wrong.
Very good.
Yes. Sulaiman, you're a student of taxation. Yes. This whole debate about MPs, numbers must be attached to get the proper context. Honor said, if it was general for everybody, then it would be understandable. Because where I work, they pay me a transport allowance. NTV pays me a transport allowance, pays me a housing allowance, pays me whatever. They consolidate everything, and I am taxed gross. The debate is, why are members of parliament selective in choosing their basic pay? My basic pay is very minimal. But to make a meaningful pay-as-you-earn contribution to the government of Uganda, everything is consolidated. I use the same road as members of parliament, I get the fuel from the same pump, and everything else. And so how do you contextualize? Because you're also a journalist who's reporting this thing.
Yeah. As someone who is familiar with this entire debate as it started, because it didn't just start yesterday, the issue is about tax justice, and people are, why we engaged in this discussion is to look to see whether our tax legal framework is fair to all Ugandans. But the question you asked me, I will just give a straight answer that EMPs are selfish, although the context can be explained. Let me first clarify what Chris talked about. I'm sorry that when Chris was to speak, he just said that he has to clarify something from the predecessor, his predecessor. But I want to tell him that Chris should give a correct impression to Ugandans, the viewers, because Parliament is taking people for granted. MPs, for heaven's sake, don't just get 11.8. And if, for someone like Ona who has been in Parliament, he knows that very well, that MPs get a lot of money from travel.
What is a lot of money?
The allowances. Yes. The allowances is
because that's a generalization.
Because the moment you say that MPs' allowances are not going to be taxed, then there is a problem. But when you get the preamble, because the discussion is about employment income, and whether our law, basically, employment income is subject to taxation. But when you look at that entire article, Article 19, employment income, there are particular benefits. As a general rule, if I'm on employment or anyone else is on employment, like MPs, allowances, things like housing, mileage, travel allowances, housing, gratuity, all benefits. And the position of the law has been that any benefit you get by virtue of your employment, it has to be taxed because it's an income due to you. For the rest of Ugandans, the tax regime has created exceptions, and those are the exemptions we look at in section 21, which says that these particular individuals, even if they are deriving an income, they are exempted from paying a tax on their income. And that's where we have the listed institutions. We have listed institutions, we have diplomats, we have people who are in UPDF, Uganda Police, and many entities. There is a rationale.
The judiciary?
Not the judiciary, they are not exempted.
They're exempted.
They are not. There is a decision of Masal Musene where the Supreme Court was emphatic, and it said that the judges are supposed to pay taxes.
Okay.
There was a strong fight that went up to the Supreme Court. And any institution that has been exempted from paying taxes on any allowance or benefit they get by virtue of their employment, there has been a rationale. Okay. And public policy has explained it very well.
Okay. We'll come
now,
back to
for
that
the case of Parliament...
Can you hold your thought? Because, Chamteta, you have to kindly bear with me. We'll take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'll pick it up. You conclude your thought, and then I will come to you to make your contribution. We'll be right back in a moment. To tax or not to tax members of Parliament, every emolument they earn. That is the question that we're trying to battle with here. Chris Obore, who is Director Communications and Public Affairs at Parliament, has clarified that members of Parliament actually get taxed from their basic income. But that's not the debate. The debate is, for every other salary earner, every allowance given to them is consolidated and taxed together. Members of Parliament have decided to exempt their allowances from that taxation. And that's the discussion we're having tonight. Should that be?
I'm not coming in. It is you who are changing the debate. The debate has been going on that these MPs are not paying any tax.
No.
Which is false. MPs pay the tax. So now the argument you are bringing is it okay for them to exempt themselves from allowances, or it should be cross-cutting? But the public has been told that the MPs are not paying tax, which is false.
The
MPs pay taxes.
The forces states had never discussed this debate about taxation. And you cannot expect
and it's a show.
No, you cannot expect the forces states to discuss from an uninformed position. So that's
you have sandwiched yourself.
Sulaiman, I want you to conclude your
thoughts. And you know, I have to tell Chris that you should not belabor to explain that so much. because of one thing. This show clarifies things that have been carried in the press. Now, what has happened is that Parliament is exempting itself on paying taxes on allowances, particularly travel allowances, housing allowances, mileage allowance, gratuity, and others. But other Ugandans are paying that.
Okay.
And that's why some people are saying that, no, this is unfair.
Okay.
Even if we are all living in the same economy, we are all going through the same problems. The dependence syndrome is almost the same across the country. And how come that one should be taxed and another is not taxed?
Okay.
And that's where the fairness is coming in from.
To Muhereza Chamteta. Muhereza, there are about 1.8 million Ugandans who are supposed to be earning a salaried income. NSSF numbers, 1.57 something registered members. Only 579, I think, about 579, less than 600 are active contributors to NSSF. That's where you gauge people who are earning a salary or not. You have also about another 300,000, about 350,000 people who are employed by government. Those do not contribute to NSSF because they're supposed to be pension earners within the public service system. So you have taxable, you have taxable people up to on about 800,000 in this country. You have members of parliament. Now parliament has grown. They are going to be 458. And the 458 fall in that bracket of Ugandans who earn a little more consolidated earning compared to the rest of the society. Your take on this discussion?
Okay, I've posted about this on my Facebook wall, and I had started the disclaimer saying, at the risk of of sounding ridiculous, I am happy that the MPs have passed this, because this is going to be a good precedent on which we other salary earners are going to base to challenge this whole thing of saying, because if I'm earning an allowance for housing, or an allowance for school fees for those who earn it, or an allowance for travel, that's a cost. Now, this whole business of consolidating it and then you tax it means that you are taking away half, you're taking more than half of what I'm supposed to be doing. Because an example is, if I'm earning money as fuel allowance, as I say it's 3,000, you come and tax it and take away the 30%, which is the pay as you earn. That means I have lost the 30%. When I go to the pump, when I pump and pay, I also, because there is a tax component of about 800 shillings on a liter. So, in other words, my allowance is, I lose like 50% of my allowance. I think to me what's happening is that
you subsidize government with 50% because you're paying over and above what you're supposed to be paying.
Yeah, because the thing is, the allowance, the reason why they give me an allowance is because the paying authority appreciates that this is a cost. And that's why they are giving me this money. Just because I get it in one check at the end of the month does not give you a right to come and tax it. And because I used to work for a company, instead of giving me a fuel allowance, they used to go and pay money to a petrol station, and I will go and fuel this money in kind. So now, how different is that from owner who earns that money at the end of the month? So it means the owner who earns at the end of the month is being cheated, is losing the 30% of it. Yet me who gets the fuel in kind, my company goes and submits it as a cost. So I think this is a good precedent which should allow us, all other people, all the Ugandans out there, and I believe we should. I know I can understand the emotions we are putting behind this, because we think, the MPs don't want to pay or whatever. But I think at the end of it all, there is something good. We need to come out and challenge this. But also, most importantly, we need to challenge and take this discussion further. I think URA has failed to widen the tax base. They are looking out for those people who are easy to tax, and they come and tax them and keep on adding more taxes on them.
Now, this is an interesting discussion, gentlemen. Yeah. We are not talking about church ministers. We are talking about elected officials whom we send from our constituencies as representatives to table in parliament our problems as people who vote for them. Honor. The people of Amuria voted for you once and sent you to parliament. Now you arrive in parliament and say, no, from what I'm earning, I have a problem. You see, I travel to Amuria, and a liter of fuel is 3,300 shillings. Parliament has been giving me 2,100. So, even when they increase it, you say, no. You see, if you tax this, when I go to the pump, like Chamteta has said, I actually pay the full price. So if you have already taxed it, you're taxing me twice. But your job, your primary job, and I'll bring that to Chris in a moment, is to defend my interests, not your interests alone. Your interest should be defended alongside my interests as a voter. Is that the debate?
Yeah,
that is
that's
missing in
why I
Parliament?
think one of the possible solutions for Parliament is then to move to what Chamteta has been urging, remove the burden of handling these costs from the MPs and put it on the institution. So let the institution manage the travel costs without actual handing out money to an MP. Then that should not become an issue. Because it's unfair. No, I don't know, but because that would really make it very easy to say, apart from if the allowances are for buying food or whatever, that one you can't buy someone food. But if they are to do
you can
things like
in a
travel, things
restaurant.
like this, let MPs not be the ones handling cash, because it's so tempting with all the pressures you have to give someone money and then maybe they will not use it for the intended purpose, and naturally they will feel that they are not able to meet the purpose. So I think it's a challenge for Parliament. The numbers are growing. They must certainly change something about it. Otherwise, they will just get more demands and more pressures, and we shall be blamed.
Let me continue from there.
Let me put a question as you continue from what Ona said. We vote for members of Parliament to represent us, not themselves. Now, when they arrive in Parliament, the interests they should be defending should be the interests of their constituents. When they separate their own income from the general income of the people they represent, what does that say about their representatives?
I can see, Charles, you trying to push the civil society method of thinking unilateral and unwilling to see the other points of view just because the gender is
I am asking the question.
I'm trying to answer it. You see, you should give me time. Much as I'm a journalist, I speak for an institution under attack, and it is important that I get that element to explain those issues. That's why I'm coming. Let me pick up from what Apito says, but then I can answer your question. On Apito, I'm telling you, is speaking these things right on. No wonder he's our senior here. The MPs are discussing now the same thing on Apito is saying. They are tired of, especially people thinking they are taking free money. They are tired of the public being set against them. And they are saying the options are available. Where I would expect Kakaire, the journalist, to be analytical to analyze how are our MPs, how expensive are they? We don't ask. There are three arms of government, like you mentioned them, the executive, legislature, and the judiciary. For the last 17 years, there are figures, IFMS figures, Minister of Finance, which a journalist like Kakaire or Magucha can go and print out. For the last 17 years, Parliament has gotten 1.7% of the national budget, averagely. The judiciary, 1.75%. If an institution which is a separate arm of government has been getting 1.7% out of 100% of the budget, and the public says it is wasting our money, you address press conferences, it is blowing it about expenditure, have you looked at the budget? Have you analyzed it? How much have they put themselves? How much have they left for public service delivery? It is simple. These figures are available in the Ministry of Finance. The fact that journalists are lazy to get into the real work of analysis, then we fall for propaganda.
What question are you answering?
So I'm answering the element of whose interest they are representing. When they take 1.7 for the last 17 years, are they demanding too much? But because
ideally, how much should they take
to run a parliament? Do you know right now we don't have money to pay office accommodation?
No. How much should they be taking? What ideally?
If Parliament had 5%, it would even be running more than what you think of the national budget.
What are they supposed to be doing with that 5% of the national
now, if Charles, a senior journalist, does not know the role of the legislature, then the country is in trouble.
The reason I have invited
Charles,
listen, to answer the question.
I can prove you.
Hold on, I want to explain. I've told you, much as I'm a journalist, I am explaining these issues.
Yes.
And don't run away from them. The inability for us to place a problem and say this way it is, MPs are saying, okay, if we're giving us 103 million shillings, they say these fellows are greedy. We are public people. We represent the people. An MP qualifies for a car equivalent to a permanent secretary. You know what a car PS drives? Land Cruisers, new. Government never buys old vehicles. Government buys new vehicles. That is what an MP is entitled, a 4.5 engine capacity. But they have been able to get money for a second-hand car. We are saying they're expensive. Now they are saying, okay, government, parliament, buy the cars, put a driver, fuel it, put the tires. If it gets spoiled, take it to a garage. My work is to go to the constituency. If we are analytical, this economy cannot sustain it. It cannot. It cannot. So if they get 105 million to buy a second-hand Japanese car, pay your own driver, repair it, if you bang it in an accident, gone. We are saying MPs are greedy.
No, actually,
then there is a problem.
Yes,
with
actually,
the conceptualization of the role of the MP.
Actually, Chris, let's put some facts together. Members of Parliament, the car contribution of 103 million shillings in this Parliament that is expiring in May next month was part contribution. The deal and the discussion was that members of Parliament would pay the taxes on their cars. So government makes a contribution of a tax-free car. Members of Parliament were expected to raise about another 100 million to pay taxes if they are going to drive new cars. Now,
and yet they are entitled to have a car.
Just a moment. So because they have received 100 million, they buy a car within the money they have received without topping it up with the tax component.
Yes, but now you're saying, it is a fact.
Yes.
If an MP can accept to subsidize the government, which is supposed to buy them a car, and they say, okay, we will pay for the tax, are you considering them greedy?
Let me ask.
Because they are pulling from their own pocket.
Okay, let me ask this.
Have you seen a PS who has no car, who also subsidizes?
Kakaire, as you come in here, we are discussing, when we place government as there somewhere, we place parliament as somewhere else there. We place the judiciary on the other
government,
side.
there is parliament, judiciary, executive.
No. The point I'm trying to drive at is,
so
you place government and put it somewhere there. You pick parliament, you place it somewhere there, and the judiciary on the other side.
Yes.
You have a discussion that MPs are subsidizing government, they're getting from government. Government is getting from, I don't know who, the judiciary is getting from. The question is the ordinary person. My member of parliament represents me. I am the one who gets taxed. Daniel Kalinaki wrote a brilliant article the other day talking about the three young ladies, Ugandan young ladies. One was the late Rosemary Nankabirwa, who died when everybody was fundraising to get her cancer treatment. The other was Carol Athirwe, who is now fundraising. For 5 years, her family has been battling on its own to take care of her, but they're failing and they need $80,000. They're fundraising. The third person Daniel talked about was the minister, the member of parliament for Luwero, the woman member of parliament for Luwero, for Kayunga, and minister of state for land, Aida Nantava, who is getting treatment on taxpayers' money. And asking, what is the difference between those three people?
And you see, that's where I have to tell senior owner and Cham, they have to understand the whole context. Because Cham has opened the conversation. He started it on his Facebook wall, that actually this is the right time for Ugandans to wake up. Some of the Ugandans whose allowances have been taxed. And for me, my argument is, the issue is not just waking up, but these MPs, we have to understand the context within which they have brought this amendment. In 2004, there has been a judgment in February. Justice Adonio made a decision, and he said that MPs have not been remitting their taxes on this money. Since 2004, they should go and pay that money. These very MPs, since 2004, they have not debated Section 19, under which you and me are being charged of this tax. Do you think they have the motive to see that every Ugandan enjoys the treatment under which they want to be subjected to? That is the fairness. These MPs after seeing that the judgment was on their door, and they have a chance that this is the time to amend the tax regime to make sure that it's not out of reality with our economic targets, they said, okay, let's use this opportunity and defeat a judgment of court. And we are saying that, okay, even if they do that, do you expect them in the next financial year or this very financial year to amend Section 19? I doubt.
Can you help our
But
viewers? What is
again,
Section 19?
it explains the entire narrative that
you
in
need
a
help-
new patrimonial state like
you
this.
need to help our viewers understand what is in Section 19. And
Section 19
of
is
which law?
basically employment income, and it forms the foundation of taxing allowances, gratuity. It's Section 19
Which
of the
law is that?
Income Tax Act.
Income Tax Act. Okay.
Yeah, it provides the mandate to URA to tax things like housing allowance. If you're getting that allowance as due by virtue of your employment, is taxed. Things like travel abroad, which MPs are getting. And the reason why I wanted to tell Chris is that you see an MP on average, if they are just to travel out of the country, every day they spend outside the country, they get per diem,
Yes.
$600. You can make, and if someone on average spends 5 days, let me give an example of 5 days. 5 times
before you go,
no, please let me first explain this. Because the,
Don't parade a falsehood here. MPs get 520.
yeah, 500.
Your life,
okay.
notwithstanding.
Okay, it depends. Okay, they are revised. They are revised.
When
from
did they
time to
revise
time.
it? Why don't you get from me?
MP,
Charles, hold on.
MP
You will
includes
continue.
a minister.
The problem with journalists in Uganda.
Let me tell you.
A journalist begins to think when he picks his rumor, that is the truth. I have told them I now have everything about MPs earning on my desk.
Okay.
If you want, come to me.
Okay.
They will choose to say my
Okay,
sources.
Chris.
You see?
Chris is basically urging on a technicality, but what
let-
I know,
but those are facts.
an
let me
ordinary
actually step
MP
in.
gets 520.
Let me step in a little bit.
chairperson of the Committee of Parliament
let me
gets
step in a-
600,
let me step
like
in a
a
little bit.
minister, and
Kakaire.
they are all in the definition of an MP.
Who
Kakaire,
pays
let
that
me-
one?
let me step in a
But
little.
let's not lose the focus
We've
of
been
the
having
argument.
a debate.
Mhm.
When you raise the foreign travel question
Yeah.
as an allowance, I think you missed something, because people who travel out of the country
Yes.
complain about eating breakfast of $20.
Yes.
The problem with many Ugandans is that when they are eating breakfast of $20, they convert into Ugandan currency and think they are spending a lot of
It's
money.
a lot of money.
Now, if you were in on parliamentary duty in London, in Paris, in New York, $520 as per diem is actually little money. And I wouldn't have an argument over that. But my question is, if an MP is getting a consolidated fuel allowance, mileage, what Chris you call mileage in Parliament, getting mileage, and NTV gives me a transport allowance, my transport allowance is taxed. The MP's mileage is not taxed. What is the difference between the two?
Let me
Now,
answer. I cannot answer.
No.
But
Chris,
Kakaire,
you
you
see,
come.
the issue is
You are talking about Parliament.
Chris is,
I represent the people you are talking about. He cannot offer you an
But-
answer other than his opinion.
but you're managing
What I'm
their
telling you,
perception
yes,
in the public
but
domain.
part of my
You
managing,
don't want them to
hold
be
on.
seen as
No,
people who are
that's
abusing
that's the
offices.
part of my mandate is actually to take Parliament to people. And taking Parliament to people means giving people facts about Parliament, not
Yes.
only lies.
Okay.
You get the point?
Can you allow
So what
Kakaire
we
to
are
finish
saying,
his-
what we are saying here, Kakaire himself, Obusava sent you an assignment.
Yes.
Do you get money from your bank account? Don't they give you money to go?
I get.
And you pay
Do-
taxes
do-
on
do-
that?
do they commit a
That
crime?
is different.
Now.
What is
So,
what
if
is being
Obu-
subjected
if
to
Obusava
tax is not
if
that.
Obusava is facilitating you,
An MP.
but Parliament gives an MP money,
No.
you are quarreling.
Observer, Charles,
Make your point.
let's first explain this context, because I know Chris cherry picks and the viewers will not get the entire correctness of what we are discussing.
Because
When
they are not-
an
they are not
MP
trained.
travels, Charles, when an MP travels, the flighter, when their tickets and everything to do with accommodation, that is paid for by Parliament. And this 520 for an ordinary MP, but the chairpersons and ministers and other members, some of them get 600. That is per diem. It's an income due to them. Now, when that income is due to them,
Kakaire.
other Ugandans.
Chris's question
Because
was,
where we are going, Charles, I know where you're
Chris's
going.
question to you is, the observer
Yes.
sends you to cover the trial or the appearance of
Koyelo.
Koyelo at the ICC.
Yes.
They buy for your ticket.
Yeah.
They book for your hotel. And they give you what some people call entertainment allowance.
Out of station.
Or out of station allowance. And they give it to you to spend when you are at The Hague.
Yeah.
Yes. Should that money be subjected to tax?
Should MPs be given that money in the first place?
Charles, you're not getting it correctly. The observer, the money observer pays for my ticket to cover Koyero at the ICC is not subject to a tax.
Why?
The money which I get as an allowance of going to The Hague to cover Koyero trial is what is being subjected to a tax.
Is it?
Yes, the per diem.
I thought you picked that from the
there are
accountant
several.
at,
There are
at
several
Observer.
others. The things like mileage. You know what we are? You are stretching it for the taxman to remotely define discretion as to how you spend your income. You're telling me an MP will get mileage. How much money? I know amount X. That amount X. An MP is not just going to spend it. They have the discretion
before you go into the break, let me bring in Chamtetera. We've been stretching this a little because I think travel money given as per diem for travel outside is a different arrangement.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that NTV, SAB Miller, CEO, Observer are private organizations. They pay the taxes already. But the money given, the consolidated money that is a subject of this debate, is the money that an MP gets on their pay slip at the end of the month, like you get or you give to your employees at CEO Magazine. And say, because I employ Charles Mwangusha, his basic pay is 300,000. I give him airtime allowance of 100,000 shillings. I give him a transport allowance of 150,000 shillings. I give him a housing allowance of 200,000 shillings. You add that together, 200 plus 150, 350, plus 100,000, 450. You add that to the money you pay me already, 300,000, it comes to 650,000 shillings. We used to have a guy, you know him, called Henry Odia.
Yeah.
Odia puts that together.
He's still alive, don't say we used to have.
No, because when I see his back for the money. Odia gets that money together and says, the taxman, or the taxwoman now, the taxwoman takes out, Doris Akol, takes out of this 30%, pay as you earn. So 30% goes off. Says, NSSF takes out of this, for Charles Mwangusha, 5%. Then the monitor would add another 10%, 15%. They cut that off. So what comes into my account is not 650,000 shillings, minus NSSF, minus pay as you earn, it comes as maybe 420,000 shillings. A member of parliament representing Kampala Central, Muhammad Nsereko, gets a basic salary of 11.18 million shillings. That money is subject to a pay as you earn deduction of 40%, because it's above 10 million, 40%. But on Muhammad Nsereko's, the money that goes to his bank account includes a mileage allowance to Kawempe, if that is the end point of his Kampala Central constituency. It includes a housing allowance. It includes a wardrobe allowance. I'm just assuming. It includes a wardrobe allowance.
Which is not there.
Yes. It includes airtime allowance or communication.
Which is not there.
Yes, it is consolidated. When it is put together, it comes to maybe 20 million shillings. Assuming. That 20 million shillings, the accountant at Parliament says this is an allowance, this is an allowance, this is an allowance. Free, exempt.
It's free,
now,
exempt.
11.18 is what gets taxed. That is what the problem is.
I think to me, we are just using, this is an injustice that has been going on for us as taxpayers, and I think there's an opportunity for us to address it. Now, like I've told you, in different organizations, there are many ways of paying out allowances. Right now, in the civil service and in most NGOs, when you spend money, say, out there for, say, accommodation or fuel, you come make a claim, that money is sent to you, to your account, direct to your bank account, and I think they reimburse the entire expense because this is money you spend. Now, just because the MPs are unlucky to get this money at the end of the month in one lump sum should not really be an excuse for people to create a tax for them. Because the thing is, if you are paying me 1 million to go to Mbarara, at the end of the month, because this 1 million has come together with my salary, you remove 40% from the 1 million. You are giving me 600. You know, basically you are cheating me, and this is where I think the public has not been told the truth, and that's why I said to me, this is something. Maybe this should be an opportunity for any other tax lawyer out there to go and maybe take this guy's court and start, because I think like what I wanted to say earlier, that the problem we have within the media and probably within the larger context of Uganda is compartmentalization of things. Now, we are here agreeing the MPs for taking a 103 million shillings for cars. We forget about, you have a guy who works for a certain ministry whose business 90% is only in Kampala, but he drives a 250 million shilling car. Why? What are you doing with a 4-wheel drive car in Kampala, which is paid for by the state now? So, if we must tackle the issue of managing government expenditure, let's attack everybody and let's question that. We as taxpayers, let's bring everybody to book. But by attacking only the MPs, we are missing out on the larger argument, and many other people are going away with this whole thing.
But
gentlemen, we need to take a break. I'm afraid we need to take a break before I bring it on.
You ask your producer. This is burning. You ask your producer to give you a second chance.
Can I give you that second after the break?
It is very critical.
Can I give you that second after the break?
Okay.
Yes, and I want to speak like an activist.
Yes.
You see my problem?
Activists are emotional.
Yes.
Yeah. They are not research.
My problem is that we are debating people we elect. I do not elect a permanent secretary.
But it's not also as family.
Yes, I elect a member of parliament to represent me, to defend me. When the MP doesn't defend me and defend themselves, I have a problem with that. Can I give you the second? Can I give you the second after the break? Let's give me a second before you go. The break after the break. The chance. They've given you a second.
Yes. You raise issues that make me become too important to you now. Because we need to put these things in context. And you know me and you, we are journalists, we are soldiers, all of us here. A journalist's mantra is fact, fact. Not sentiment. Where did this element of paying MPs up come from? You ought to explain to the listener, to the reader. We can go to the Plateau Classical School. Plateau said, people to represent others must be people of means. People who don't desire any more help. Those were the ones who were supposed to be leaders. But at the end of the day, it was found to be false. You don't need to be Sudhir Ruparela to be a good MP. And in Europe, it is when the laborers began going to parliament to become leaders that the issue of pay for leaders came in. Why? Because Charles Mwangusha may not be a tycoon, but is a very good son of Toro, very brilliant, has attitude of care. The people of Toro have said, we want Charles to be our representative in the parliament. But Charles is not a man of means. The state was then obligated to facilitate Charles to leave Toro, to come here and represent his people. That is where the concept of paying comes in. Because indeed, while Charles is poor financially, Charles is rich mentally. This is how the concept of these emoluments come in. So when you say the people are elect, yes, you elected them, but not everybody was elected had the means to come and represent you.
I have no problem with that.
So if you want not to spend on the parliament, then go back to Plateau and say, let us allow, how are the tycoons here, Kirumira?
No. I think you're misleading us. I think you're trying to mislead us. I am saying, as we take the break, I am saying the MP represents a teacher.
Yes.
The teacher in a private school earns a salary. That salary of the teacher in a private school, every allowance they get is subjected to a tax.
Yes.
That MP is supposed to come and say, this Income Tax Act is unfair to the people of Uganda, not to members of parliament. Let's take a break. To tax or not to tax members of parliament, that is the question. And I want to clarify again, members of parliament actually do pay as you earn tax, payee, but only on their basic pay. The rest of us pay on everything we get from our salary controller.
You can now lobby parliament.
No. I understand. I suspect and I understand. I think you already decided to, or the tax framers, the law, they decided to broaden because they knew that many employers were going to hide. They were going to give very low basic pay and then transfer all the money to allowances.
To allowances.
So they are which is the case happening to members of parliament. I think that's why the debate is.
Yeah, but for me, I really want to emphasize my earlier point that I think all taxes on salary or on pay, at least in Uganda today, are not justified. Because I see government having a lot of initiatives like trying to help the elderly with 25,000, what have you. I doubt there are many salary earners in this country who actually, let's say, go and blow this money just drinking it or whatever. Most salary earners are actually the ones who are struggling to develop this economy. They are the people who are struggling to create decent housing in the countryside and even in the city. They are the ones who are trying to educate those who fall out of the UPE and USE in terms of quality. They want to take them to better schools. They treat their elderly, they treat their... So I don't see how the country would lose by leaving more money in the hands of the salary earners, such that they're actually able to develop the country. They're able to invest. Because the purpose of taxation, the purpose of taxation is to get money from the salary earners in order for government to utilize it to deliver services. But I'm saying, we are seeing the cancer machine breaking down. Everyone is lamenting that the delivery by the public sector is one thing. So even the few individuals who are trying to do something about their own plight and the plight of their dependents, whom the government claims to care for, why do you punish them for trying to take care of government's people?
I want Chamteta to pick it up from there. You see, you raised something, Chamo, about earlier in the discussion, that URA or the tax lady is being lazy by targeting a small section of the population that earns a salary. Now, the question is, how rational is that salary? If you're taking 30% out of my tax, I mean out of my income, and then I subsidize government on basic service delivery. When you receive a phone call from Boshenyi and they're saying old woman is not well, the first thing you think about is not has she gone to hospital. If you think has she gone to a clinic, you're thinking about a private facility. Then the next thing you're thinking about is how do I transport her from the village to Kampala to take her to a private facility. There is a significant disconnect between a salary earner and their taxes and what they get from government. Government thinks they're redistributing that to the poor people, but the first you can't subsidize government by providing for your own social services and then pay a tax on top of that because you're being double taxed. Where's the problem?
I think what you've raised, I think what we're seeing here is not that people really don't want MPs to be paid or anything. I think it's more of a value for money argument. I think people do not feel they're getting value for money from parliament. People do not feel they're getting value for money from government, and this is what is happening. Because I do believe that, for example, if you look at the economy right now, if you look at the stats from Bank of Uganda, the non-performing loans rates as of December last year had gone to about 5.29%. That means that's almost 1 billion shillings of people not paying their loans. That means an economy that is struggling. The shilling over the last 5 years has lost 41%. Now, in terms of business, we know what that means. If you look at the exports are not growing. Exports in the last 5 years, export earnings have only grown by 5%. Now, the economy is struggling. We're all doing so badly. Now, the loans, from, on average now, lending rates is about 25%, though in reality, people are borrowing at 35%. Now,
if they're not borrowing from money lenders,
what I would
because
expect,
from money lenders, they're paying about 240%.
It's terrible. Now, I would expect my MP right now moving an emergency motion, if there's anything like that in the House, to say businesses are closing, things are failing. Government, can we quickly put in place a bill that can enable you to come in and aid businesses like it happened in the US? We are saying money is not here, there's no FDI, there's no what. In the last 3-4 years, we've been trying to close a bill on how to liberalize NSSF. There's about 6 trillion shillings being held by NSSF, money which could ordinarily be freed up to, because the other day there was an interview in the papers. The MD of NSSF has been saying, as NSSF, we are willing to come and invest money in companies, but we are being held by, there is no law that is enabling us to do that. Now, these are some of the things that we would be expecting our MPs to rush and, and say, this is what is happening in the country, and let's run and save the economy now. The moment people feel that the MPs are not doing that, they are not delivering, even 1 million shillings becomes too much money for them. Okay. But I do believe that if MPs were giving us value for money, if government was giving us value for money, we wouldn't be having any problem with paying taxes.
And you know how value for money is good, Charles? Simple public policy question. What is the problem? Who is affected? What is the cost? You see, Ona puts it, I remember in this show, he tells you politics responds
to issues.
Instead of the media, the civil society, that is always coming up saying, okay, let us now drive the debate this way to benefit everybody. So we're going to sue the same piece. These are greedy people, passing wind.
Yes.
The point now here is, how many workers?
Passing wind is a bad word.
In that context, I was saying passing wind, not passing wind, passing wind. Instead of now saying, how many workers in this country critically come out to defend issues affecting workers, then the MP speak them. There is putting things in the public agenda, but these things must go to government agenda. Here, media, civil society are good at public agenda. But as long as you don't work and say, let us put this matter in the public agenda, that's when things happen. So what I'm explaining here, Charles, some of us, even journalists themselves, sometimes I keep laughing. Hey, teachers are the worst paid. Compare how many policemen, how many. But none comes and says, actually, teachers in Uganda are better paid than many journalists.
That's true.
No one comes, no journalist will come out. Teachers, a teacher earns 450. We know for a fact journalists who go home with 80,000 shillings.
Yeah, journalists
but
never defend their own rights.
But the journalist is
defend other people's
busy. MPs are leaving teachers. Why are you unable to talk about yourself? I know some journalists who cannot even join a trade union, even when the constitution passed by the same MPs says you are free to join a trade union. Your media don't allow you to join trade unions. None of you can speak. It is oppressed fellows venting out through teachers, through policemen. Policemen and teachers have the association, Uganda National Teachers Association. And over time, they have worked to improve the well-being of teachers. Every year, they say we need this percentage increase. Where is the journalist? But you see, I am saying,
I am being unfair to journalists. To attack journalists and
I am not attacking, I am speaking for them. I am speaking, Charles, don't shut me down. I know you still work with the media. I am speaking even for journalists.
Yes.
When we are talking about the worst paid in Uganda, please don't use teachers. It is the journalists. Don't begin masquerading hiding under teachers.
Thank you very much.
The other thing is when you come to MPs, MPs can be able to pick those issues. It is when you have petitioned an MP, that's why there are petitions in Parliament. When you have lobbied them, that you begin to assess, do they respond to this issue?
What happened to research?
No. What happened to them representing the people who vote for them?
Charles, what do you mean by representation?
No, I mean, when they come to me, they
the other day, the MPs said, government, clear people who won court cases 10 years ago. Don't pay this new one. Were you watching Parliament? What were they doing? You see, Charles, the representation should be used as a
Can you explain to me?
Let me tell you, Charles, let's remove this fallacy that we are perpetuating. Me, the taxpayer, let me tell you, working in the private sector or in any civil society does not make you the only taxpayer. Government people, I pay tax.
Yes, you do.
But when I find Charles talking, me, the taxpayer, it's like me, I am suffering the same tax. Opono pays the tax.
Yes.
Bantanza pays the tax. You can't go and say, we the taxpayers. Who are you? All of us are affected.
No.
All of us are paying tax. If somebody works in the state house, it doesn't mean they don't pay taxes.
No.
They do.
Chris.
They do.
No. Just hold it a moment. Explain to me, in as simple terms as possible, why me, the journalist, Charles Mwangusha, why my 500,000 consolidated pay at the end of the month is subjected to a consolidated taxation, and my member of parliament is not subjected to the same.
The member
pure and simple.
clear and simple.
Yes.
One, because you are not exercising your civic competence to make the member of parliament respond to you. A member of parliament has just responded to his now. But what is the response from you? They are not paying taxes, which is false.
No.
They pay taxes.
Another simple question.
You want to put them on defensive?
No,
instead of
another
saying,
simple question.
Now that you have done this,
Why,
there is this problem.
Why in the entire parliament, only one MP, Saro Pendi, stands up and says, ladies and gentlemen, this is wrong. We are not representing our people. We are representing ourselves.
It is, according to her, it is wrong because she saw Mwangusha yapping that it is wrong.
Yes.
But now, Onapito and Chamtetera have educated you.
Does she have an opinion?
That first of all, one, MPs have not exempted themselves from paying tax.
Can I answer that?
MPs are paying tax. They have only said, when you give me fuel to come from Kaberemaido to President Ipolo here, don't consider that fuel my income.
Thank you.
Because I do go to Kaberemaido to meet my people.
Thank you.
Simple.
Thank
now,
you.
for Charles, who is also working, the point now, which feedback I can give to Parliament, I can go and meet the Speaker. I have that privilege now. That now, the public thinks, let this exemption on allowances be discussed and extended to every worker.
Thank you.
But now, you started from a wrong premise.
No.
That
Hold
these
it.
fellows
Hold it a
are not
moment.
paying tax.
Chris, I want you to look through that window. You see that group of people there? The people producing this show?
I have seen them.
You see them there?
Since I began here.
Yes. They receive a consolidated pay. They are working up to this hour, and they will be going back home. They receive a transport allowance. Why wouldn't my MP raise that and say, the fuel allowance, the allowance you're giving to me, should give it to everybody?
Very good. Now,
why didn't that come in the debate of Parliament?
What have I liked now?
Competence.
Charles, you have now shifted from the blame game that only paying tax,
No.
falsehood. Now,
We
that
started there.
That is a question I would prefer to be discussed by Parliament.
You speak for
But
Parliament?
yes, I speak for Parliament.
Yes.
And that is a fact. I have, even before I came here, I discussed with Honorable Bahati. Before I came here, he's my minister, if you don't know that. So he's the one who tabled the bill. I said, Honorable, what is the ingredient of this bill? Now, these are the issues. People think by exempting only MP's allowances, we are being narrow. Is there a possibility that this matter becomes for every worker? Because even me, even exempt, because MPs are exempted, but media work I pay.
Yes.
So it's not only
why are you defending them?
No!
Why are you defending them?
What I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is that the lie that MPs don't pay taxes.
No. There is no lie. At least on the fourth estate, yes, we have agreed that on the fourth estate, we state the fact.
Yes.
MPs have exempted themselves from paying taxes on the
allowance.
allowances. That is fact.
But on their
But
salary,
every other salary earner pays a tax on everything they take home. That comes also there. That's a fact.
that is a fact, yes.
No, but the answer, the answer you get, you want to get from Chris, you will not get it.
Why? You
Because
ask
his
me.
role is one.
No.
Can I say something?
I am an intelligent man.
Yes. Because whatever answer you will give is for purposes of managing the perception of Parliament amongst the public. And that is to cosmeticize everything. But let me tell you, what you've asked him, why the MPs
is doing a good job.
at one point, when they come to Parliament, they do something good for themselves, but they will not do something good for the people who have voted them to this Parliament. And he has explained the issue of civic competence. But I wanted to give you the context. He was right, the issue of civic competence. But I wanted to give you the context that in any neo-patrimonial state, a voter is basically there as a subject. He is a client. And the MP is the patron. These MPs define who their voters are. If an MP, for instance, I'll give an example. An MP goes to my constituency in Uganda and says that he distributes money. He gets to Parliament. That voter will not make that MP accountable. They will not account to those voters. The MPs know very well that even if they pass whatever law they want, whatever favor they need, the voters will not make them accountable. Because the citizen does not hold that power
But
to hold
I will
an
not
accountable.
allow.
I'll tell you.
I will not allow.
I'll tell you one
MPs
thing.
to be misled.
No.
First allow
MPs are not.
his point,
Can
then
I
we'll-
make my
then we'll
point?
speak.
Can I
Okay,
make
go
my
ahead.
point? That you see, the context we are talking about, these MPs since 2004, even when the law was in existence, they have been abusing the law. If you read the judgment of Justice Adonyo, he's telling you that Parliament Commission, what have you been doing? You hold the mandate to charge these MPs. You've not been doing the same. But for an ordinary Ugandan, Charles, me and you have been paying this money. MPs have been abusing that. As we move forward, Champ, even if as we move forward.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
I want to ask this question to all of us here, and
I am ready to answer.
maybe the viewers who
Before
are
the
out
question
there.
is asked.
Yes,
and,
I'm ready to answer. I
they could
speak for
respond.
Parliament, and with
In principle, and I mean, just because it's been happening for a very long time, and we guys have been doing it, and MPs have just woken up and said they've been being diddled. Is the principle of charging allowances in principle is it right?
it's bad.
Now,
But
for everyone.
now,
Okay.
it depends.
Gentlemen,
It
gentlemen,
depends. Can I answer? Charles, I had the floor.
I want us to
floor.
listen.
This
I want
Parliament.
us to hear.
This is Parliament.
I want us to hear
Yeah.
from our viewers.
Yeah.
Our
You-
opinions
you
are
hear.
important. Hold it, Chris.
No,
Our
but this guy
opinions-
has talked something about
Just a
Parliament and
moment.
accountability.
Yes.
Charles,
Our opinions are important. Let's hear what our viewers are saying. Can we pick a call on the line? Fast. Yes, please. Hello. Good evening, sir.
My greeting to all the gentlemen.
Thank you. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
I'm calling you calling in today. First of all, I'm certainly sure that if Mr. Bristol Borre hadn't been the parliamentary publication chief, he would be on a very, very different angle tonight on the step. Secondly, it would be so absurd that if our MPs exempt themselves from paying the taxes after poor Ugandans can afford to pay taxes, why not the MPs who get huge chunks of money from their allowances, from the bills passed, even from some, this is my point of view, from some outside sources, because I know as an MP, you might be kind of requested to come for a certain conference. They go for the conferences, they get money, so they have to pay taxes. After all, the radiotherapy machine in Mulago has broken. If these MPs exempt themselves from paying salaries, then that means that we won't have any other service deliveries in the country, because the MP's salary, the taxes from the MPs, it's part of a big budget to the taxes that are running this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we pick another caller? We'll pick on about 3.
Hello,
Yes.
NTV. This is James Onono calling from Gulu.
James, keep your question or comment brief.
Thank you very much. I must say that as citizens of Uganda, definitely we are disappointed at members of parliament who don't want to pay taxes. That is very bad. However, I've seen some MPs coming out to say it is from their allowances, not their salary. But this is what we as Ugandans, we still need this thing to be clear. Is it really allowances, or they are trying to do trying to do damage control? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard, James. Do you have another caller? That line doesn't seem to be good. Another caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Ronald calling from Kigali.
Yes, Ronald. All the way from Kigali. Go ahead.
It's interesting to see a panel of very nice gentlemen seated there discussing an issue that really is very disappointing. For me, the kind of Chris I know, when he was still seated on that panel, is a different Chris Oboy, and the same story he was giving for other people who actually went into government. However, the big thing here we need to consider is one, okay? If just like the host of the panel is trying to describe the whole scenario, that if any public servant, or whether in the public whether the public business is being taxed on a wholesome or he is earning, what is so special about the MP? It is as simple as that. Because we all are given allowances as operational, but still government takes the tax. Then we should not be blaming. We should not. I mean, we have then a reason to blame the MP rather than contextualizing whether this law is actually a good law as far as tax payment is concerned or not. Therefore, it is very, 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 very bad and a practice for an MP to exempt themselves in Parliament again just because they have a house where they debate laws to debate in exclusion of the general public they serve. And this is very unfair for our nation, and it's not patriotic at all. And Chris Obore, shame on you.
Thank you very much, Ronald, for your contribution. I'm afraid you can't take more feedback, but let me start with Chris. Let me bring it back to you. That if the Chris Obore who sat next to me in the Monitor newsroom was discussing this same issue, he would look at it from a different perspective from the Chris Obore who is a director of communication at Parliament.
It's exactly.
That's why he said Ronald is very disappointed.
I told you from the very beginning that give me time because I represent Parliament.
Yes.
Now you're struggling whether I should explain these issues or not. And for me, people expect to hear from me about Parliament.
Yes.
As to whether Chris Obore yesterday, the Chris Obore you know is a guy when he commits to do something, does it to his best. It's like you're saying when he was a journalist, because I was not a journalist who picks a rumor in the street. All my stories were investigative. Nobody could challenge them. That's why they are saying, oh, the other Obore. Now I am working in the Parliament. I am doing my job the best way possible. Okay? And why do I do it? Is to still demystify some of the shortfalls about Parliament. The only thing coming out here is that, first of all, there are those who are saying, is it true? Can you imagine? You have explained several times here that MPs are paying what? Taxes.
But
Some
all
people
the taxes
some people choose to say they are not paying taxes. That's the country we live in. But the point is, Charles, Parliament, as we see, there are three arms of government. Charles, if we want the quality of legislation to grow in this country, we must discuss what kind of input we need. Okay? Because when you say they are value for money, how do you get it for value for money? In other parliaments, Charles, like the one of the SACAP, just I came from there today actually, but I had to honor to come here.
Yes.
I am doing an analysis. I wrote a story in newspaper that I want to see how other parliaments in Africa facilitate their MPs. So far, the finding is our MPs are laughable. Fact. In Zambia, they don't pay a tax on anything, and they have 4 officials hired in the constituency, paid by Parliament: a special assistant, administrative assistant, security officer, and a researcher. They have an office built by Parliament in the constituency for each MP. There is a car. So the MP's work is to get CDF, deliver to that office, say these are the projects.
CDF is Constituency Development Fund.
Your MP here is a jack of all trades. Is his own secretary, is his own researcher, is his own mobilizer, is and you want quality of what? So other parliaments have moved on to actually strengthen legislation. But we are not strengthening legislation, we are better lamenting about legislation. You can't do away without a parliament if you want a democracy. It is the center. Hold on, Kakairi. Questions are coming here.
But you brought the issue of Zambia.
You
have to give the comparative.
Hold it. Allow him to make a point.
Okay, it's okay.
There is load shedding in Zambia as we speak. Generators are running the country for a year. So it is the poorest.
So we can't admire anything about it. The cost of public administration, like Cham said,
can you listen?
We have to manage based on our budget.
Can you listen?
Reality.
Can you allow him to make his point?
South
Because I'm about to cut off.
Which were even helping to pacify.
Yes.
Pays their MP higher. I gave you.
Rwanda, they are not thinking rightly.
See, I'm saying if ours were that bad, they would have demanded to be better than South Sudan MPs. This is what I'm saying. So when you ask about accountability, Mr. Kakairi, don't throw these terms because you want to bamboozle the public. An MP is not accountable to an editor like you. That you go to Richard Kavuma, he says good performance. An MP is accountable to as many people in this constituency as possible.
Perfect.
And everybody
decides be accountable to those people
hold on,
by representing them.
By this election,
yes,
there are only 80 MPs returning.
It's a legal
for you,
fiction.
it is your employer said to say, satisfy based on this.
That's a legal fiction.
You get it? So you cannot quantify the value of an MP by sentiment.
No, it's not sentiment.
Because if you use
about
sentiment,
the competition or which MP earns more.
If you use sentiment, right now there is a budget process. There is something economists call efficiency wage. Has a way to remunerate people. The concept of efficiency wage is as the economy grows, so money to the pockets of politicians also grows. But in Uganda, it is a fact that this economy recovered. This economy has been growing, unless you hate it forever. But permanently, Parliament receives 1.7%. What does that indicate?
Charles,
we
are
talking
about facts. We are talking about facts. In 2011, Parliament's budget was 158 billion. In 2016-2017 budget is 651 billion. The budget has been increasing. You cannot tell me that the budget share of Parliament should be equal to that of the executive. The executive has very many government departments. We are talking about ministries. Parliament, we are talking about as an entity. Leave the facade of, Chris, we can debate this as Ugandans. You were Ugandan before you became a director at Parliament. Let's be honest.
And he remains a Ugandan.
He remains a Ugandan. Yes. First, respond to those callers who have told you that, Chris, you've changed.
Hold on.
Chris, this is here to both your head and heart.
But
speak from the bottom of your heart.
Gentlemen, hold on.
It's cherry picking.
No,
gentlemen.
Chris
Obore, the facts.
Chris Obore, by very nature, sets out to do something and does it better.
Thank you.
Now, the point, Charles, is...
And explain to
the
viewers
budget
the increment of budget.
Hold on. Kakaire,
the entire 8th Parliament spent 22 billion in travels only.
Can I answer you?
This Parliament in 3 years they had spent 29 billion.
You don't work in Parliament. I am now telling you. The viewers, the budget increase Kakaire is yapping about without information. Arises from a project to build a new chamber for Parliament.
Chris,
not only that.
Is it.
Can I state some ground?
We have advertised that we need a tender to build a new chamber.
Chris, can I pass?
In the 5 years,
hold it, Kakaire. I think there is what they call parliamentary language. And fourth estate language doesn't include saying people are yapping, because people are debating here. So I think yapping is unfair.
Yes, but you see,
you hold it a moment.
The callers, when they call, they never ask questions to any. As I told you, if we want to build institutions, we must access people all sides of the story.
Thank you.
And I'm telling people,
I have been
the budget increase right now is talking about is because we are going to build a new chamber.
I'm going to get
what do we need it? And if you say Parliament is an entity, a unit, how can a student of law fail even to place Parliament in the context of democracy?
Okay, I know separation of powers.
Exactly.
Budget is about what size of activity. You can't compare the size of activities of those of Parliament.
That's why Parliament has consistently not raised their percentage of the budget. They have kept it at 1.7 because they are cognizant of the fact that the executive must deliver.
Thank you.
It is on fact,
I have been listening to Chris for the last almost 2 hours, and I haven't had Chris contextualize the debate of representation and the people the members of Parliament represent.
How do you want to contextualize this?
Hold it. I'm going to turn to Honor and Cham to just have their last word on this. In the context of, there is a struggle to increase the tax base. Not the tax base, actually, the tax collection. Because the base can be expanded through different ways, though the Uganda Revenue Authority has been focusing on a narrow section of the people. You are the people who drive cars, so they tax fuel heavily. You are the people who earn a salary, so they tax you heavily on pay as you earn. You are the people who shop from all this, they tax you heavily on VAT because you subsidize the other people in the villages. And this whole debate about members of Parliament, you have a machine broken down. You have a government spending $158 million US. That is almost close to 500 billion shillings in taking people to get treatment abroad. Most of those are government officials. You have the people who are paying the taxes actually dying miserably here They're being arrested by money lenders because their salaries are not enough at the end of the day to be able to do something for themselves, keep some, pay school fees, and all these are things. I mean,
Look,
where are the people
I
in this
think
discussion?
UR has done a decent job in terms of increasing the tax collection and really making it
Taxing the same narrow
entity
section
that
of
is-
people.
Yes, but the problem with taxation in this country, which we're of course seeing happening in Parliament, there is too much politicization of taxation. And a lot of citizens are being let off the hook because of politics. Each time a group complains about taxes, somehow they are exempted. So somehow the president and everyone must really draw a line and say, can we develop a country without every citizen contributing to taxation, or we can't? I certainly believe we cannot. And people must be educated, but at the same time they must act. The best education for taxpayers is to see service. Just show them what tax has done for them this time and ask them to pay to get better and to get more. Otherwise, without removing politics out of taxation, URA doesn't have a chance. Each time you hear some people have protested, roadside traders have been exempted, these people are making money.
And who's protesting? The taxpayers.
A lot of people
talked about.
Yes, we should.
But you're
And you see, Charles, this parliament,
Chris, please,
the teachers,
please,
when
please,
when the teachers were not paid, hold on,
hold it.
Parliament
Chamtetera.
said we shall not pass the budget until teachers' pay is made. Is that the representation?
Chamtetera, please.
That's the
pick it
What
up
is
from
that?
one
Actually,
official.
I think to me my argument is this. It still goes back to the issue of value, and I think for value to happen, we need to facilitate our parliament to do a good job. And mainly where the parliament is, and I'm not talking about necessarily about the salaries. I think where they are lacking mostly is in the issue of the research function. Right now, before I came, I was looking at the medium-term expenditure framework from Minister of Finance for the next 5 years. You can't believe it. We are here crying, but actually, government is planning to reduce allocations to Minister of Health. Over the next 5 years, the allocation to Minister of Health is reducing. Now, I also looked at the planned allocation to the Uganda Cancer Institute. True, this year they allocated about 46 billion. Next year they are going to allocate about 56 billion. But after that, it's coming down to another like 39 and eventually less than 39. Now, we need people to be looking at these figures. We need people to go to the Bank of Uganda website and download and that over the last 5 years, the export earnings Uganda has been getting have only increased by 5%. Yet the 5 years before that, it grew by 75. We need people to research and ask the Governor Bank of Uganda, why is at this particular moment, when the country is suffering from lack of access to finance, you are making it difficult for the country to borrow. Now, if there need be, the parliament should be moving a motion to change the Uganda Bank of, the Bank of Uganda Act to make sure that at the end of the day, we get Bank of Uganda to sit down with the Minister of Finance and the National Planning Authority so that whatever it is that they are executing, they are thinking from the same issue. So I do believe that government, if we are going to get more value from the MPs, we shouldn't honestly narrow this down, this argument to, because at the end of the day, to me, my theory of practice and where I work is that there is nothing like much pay. We need to be looking at it, because for no work done, even 1 shilling is too much money. But for value delivered, even you can earn 80 billion when you're not doing anything. So the reason should be, we need to be asking our MPs, are they delivering value for money? I've been looking at the reports they put on their website. At least in terms of the bills that they have passed, up to the first session, and Chris, you can correct me, but at least I got this from your report, about 80% of the bills have been passed. And in terms of sitting, in terms of the time they're supposed to sit, they've sat for about 80% of the time. And by all standards, 80%
is good.
But now we need to go into the details and say, of those bills which are being passed, are they the bills that we need at this time?
As Uganda.
So we need to be somebody calling for a bill like, say, how do we come out and liberalize the pension sector so we can free that 6 trillion shillings which is being held on fixed deposit accounts in banks to come and free up the economy. So that's the kind of value discussion we need to be having. And at the end of the day, it's money that makes more money. Me, I am for the guy we should facilitate our civil servants, our MPs better, but demand for better service. Because we shouldn't just look at just the bit of pay and negate the bigger factor of performance.
Gentlemen, our time is out. Our time is out. We're going to get out of here. There should be tax justice. If citizens are paying tax, all citizens should pay tax and should pay the same rates. That's the bare minimum.
But now we agree,
just
MPs pay tax.
Yes, I have never said MPs don't pay tax. They pay tax on a portion of their income.
Yes.
Not all their income.
Not all their income.
No,
like
they
other
allow-
Ugandans.
they allow-
No, that's clear. The rest of us earn allowances and basic pay, and everything is taxed. But that's a bare minimum.
But that's fair.
But tax
And
justice also demands that they should also be charging us taxes that are fair. we need to look at the consequence. Just because it is URA and they have the powers to know taxes because they say so. I think to me, we have missed the bigger point in this whole argument. The bigger point is there are some taxes that are not fair. I agree. And this issue of the MPs sets a precedent for us to go and question these wrong taxes we've been getting.
But how are you going
Gentlemen, I'm afraid Chris, I'm afraid
you are very
Chris,
close to Napolo Katuntu. How much money does he take home?
No. I'm afraid Kakaire, you
Just
don't
tell
have
us.
Chris,
That's
you don't
a
have
personal
another
question.
opportunity.
That's a personal
Kakaire,
question.
you
But
don't
does
have
the
another
deal work?
opportunity. When members
He's
of
the best
parliament,
legislator.
when the members of parliament fail to do what they are supposed to do, to make government deliver the services we elect them to go and do, we as their constituents put pressure on them to subsidize government by doing what government should be doing. And that is their problem. Members of parliament should ask themselves, why am I paying school fees? Why am I paying medical bills? Day in, day out, because those services are not being delivered by government. Now, just a moment.
Where does the power of an MP start and end?
That I know.
Do you know?
That I know.
Where?
The problem is that as a taxpayer, as a citizen, you're being kicked between something called government, between parliament and other entities, without someone remembering. These are the
That is the role of separation of power. An MP
Thank you very much,
can only make a recommendation. That is it. They are not implementers.
Yes,
that's why there is executive.
It's
advisory.
If we privatize the management of this country, and members of
the
parliament would be maybe happier. Thank you very much, Christopher Bore, Director Communications and Public Affairs at Parliament of Uganda. Thank you very much, Sulaiman Kakaire, journalist at The Observer and student of law at Makerere University. Thank you very much, Mahereza Chamtitira, Chief Executive Officer of the Chief Executive Officer Magazine. And thank you very much, Honor Peter Francis Ekomoloid, Corporate Affairs Director of Nairobi Warriors, SAB Miller. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight, and thank you very much to our production team. That has Parliament gives a wardrobe allowance. I know that. No, they give only for 1 year. They give annually. Staff and members of staff.
No MP earns a wardrobe allowance.
Why should they earn
No one.
Why should they earn
Report facts.
Our time is out. Thank you very much, and please support the initiative to save Carol. Have a good night.
On Parliament